All right, on this episode of the Reventure Consulting YouTube cast, we're going to take a look at one of the hottest growth cities in the United States, and that would be Austin, Texas. Chances are, if you pay attention to real estate or if you pay attention to the economy, you've seen Austin crop up on a whole variety of different lists, ranging from best places to move, best places for millennials, best places for jobs. Austin really touches all of those bases and is one of the fastest growing cities in the US as a result. In today's video, we're going to take a look at just how fast Austin is growing and attempt to give some context to its growth rates, and then also see how much income is growing as well, and then try to determine what effect those things are having on real estate in Austin. This will be a good video to watch for anyone looking to buy or invest in real estate in Austin, or anyone just looking to move to the city. Will find this pretty useful. So without further ado, let's get going. So the first step in understanding a city's growth is looking at population. Austin, in terms of population growth, has done incredibly well over the last 10 years. So this graph looks at the population added each year going back from 2009 to 2019 in the Austin metro area. So that includes the city of Austin, but it also includes some surrounding cities like Round Rock and Pflugerville. So you can see that Austin's actually been remarkably consistent, pretty much at the 50 to 60,000 population increase per year. And there was maybe a slight dip in 2010 during the Great Recession, but remarkable consistency, Austin adding 50 to 60,000 people per year. That translates to 150 people per day being added to Austin's population. Now let's establish some context. What does 50,000 per year really mean? And how does that compare to other metro areas around the US? So this is a list of population growth of the 100 largest metro areas in the US over the last 10 years from 2009 to 2019. So where does Austin rank on this list? The answer is right at the top. Austin is number 2 in the US in population growth over the last 10 years. Its population has gone from 1.7 million to over 2.2 million. And that's a 31% growth rate. The only metro area in the US that's higher is Cape Coral, Florida, at slightly higher, 31%. Some of the other cities around Austin include Ogden, Utah, Orlando, Florida, and Boise, Idaho. So when you stop and think about that, that's really impressive. 30% population growth in 10 years, over 500,000 people added. That's just a tremendous growth rate and is showing how the vitality of the city is really carrying forward. Another thing that we might want to look at, though, in addition to population growth, is income growth. Right? So it's one thing to add people to a population, but it's also to grow the incomes of the population. That's a whole nother thing entirely. So where does Austin rank and how does it look in terms of income growth? So this graph looks at how Austin's income has changed over time. And what we're looking at here is called median household income. So that's the indication of what the middle class family in the Austin metro area is earning each year. And this is where we also see really strong growth. So back in 2009 and 2010, Austin's median household income was around 56 to 57,000. And then it has shot up since there. 59,000 in 2012, 62,000 in 2013, up to 64,000, 67,000, 71,000, 74, 77, and now at 81,000 in 2019. That means that the middle-class family in Austin is earning $25,000 more than they were a mere 9 years ago. That's a huge testament to the prosperity of the city. Now, once again, how does this compare to the rest of the country? So now we're looking at the percentage growth in median household income across the US from 2009 to 2019. The average is 30%. Where does Austin rank? Once again, right at the top. Austin comes in at number 7 with 44% growth in median household income over the last 10 years, going from 56,000 to 81,000. So to recount, Austin was number 2 in population growth out of 100, and it was number 7 in income growth out of 100. What would happen if we combine those two things together? If we combine the concepts of the population growing and the income growing, where would Austin rank then? So when we combine population and income growth together, we get something called aggregate income growth that just looks at the total amount of income in a metro area. And in this statistic, Austin ranks number 1 in terms of growth. So back in 2009, Austin had $34 billion of income. That's a lot of digits on there, I apologize, but that's how you get to $34 billion of income in its metro area across its entire population. In 2019, that increased to $66 billion by virtue of both its population and income growth. And that's nearly doubling, 92% growth. So the aggregate income in Austin nearly doubled in the last 10 years. It's unbelievable. And you can see that Austin's number 1 by quite a bit. So it's at 92%. Second is Charleston, South Carolina at 81%. And then the average across the US was 45. So Austin more than doubled the US average in aggregate income growth. No other city has grown population and income more in aggregate than Austin has. That is a great thing for real estate. If more people are moving to a city and those people have more money to spend, that will put upward pressure on real estate values. However, a funny thing has occurred in Austin over the last 10 years. If you look from 2010 to 2015, Austin ranks near the top of the country in home value growth. However, in the last 5 years, from 2015 to 2020, Austin has started to lag. Let's take a look at that. All right, so here on the bottom axis, we're seeing percentage increase in home value from 2010 to 2015. The average metro in the US saw a 13% home value increase in that 5-year span. Austin is the green dot over here. It saw roughly a 32% increase in home value in that span. So Austin almost tripled the average US home value increase from 2010 to 2015. However, the rest of the US has caught up significantly in the last 5 years, from 2015 to 2020. That's what this axis measures. So in the last 5 years, the average metro has seen a 32% increase in home value. Just to run that down one more time. 2010 to 2015, average metro was plus 13%. 2015 to 2020, that went up to plus 32. Austin has basically stayed stable in its home value increase in both 5-year segments. You can see values went up by 32% in the first 5 years, 31% in the last 5 years. So that's good growth any way you slice it. But you can see that Austin falls below this dotted line here, which measures the average growth for the last 5 years. That means that Austin is actually slightly below average in home value growth the last 5 years. Now, why would this be the case? Why would Austin do so much better than the rest of the US from 2010 to 2015, but then actually be slightly below average compared to the rest of the US from 2015 to 2020? Well, it comes down to Texas's and Austin's pro-growth attitude. Austin knows that a lot of people are moving into the city, and developers know that a lot of people are moving into the city. So both developers and the Austin zoning and planning boards work together to make sure lots of new housing units get approved for development. That's a good thing for keeping things affordable, but it's not as good a thing for value appreciation. Because if you're building tons and tons of new homes, it's going to be harder in the demand and supply dynamics to continue to grow value at a really fast rate. Now you can see what I'm talking about on this graph, which looks at new single-family home building permits as a percentage of the existing homes. So back in 2008, Austin permitted a 2.1% expansion of its home supply. And when you permit something, usually that then gets delivered or built in the next year or two. That went down to 1.7% in 2010, 2011. So for the first 5 years of the decade, Austin was permitting around 2% expansion in its unit supply. But that started going up pretty quickly. By 2014, Austin was permitting almost 3% expansion in its unit supply. By 2016, that went up to 3.1%, 3.7% in 2017, and in 2020, we're on pace for a 4% expansion in single-family home supply. You can see how that compares to some other hot growth markets around the US with these gray lines: Nashville, Phoenix, Denver, Columbus, and San Francisco. So Austin right now is permitting over 2 times as many new housing units as Denver. And Denver is nothing to sneeze at in terms of growth. In fact, if we go back to this aggregate income growth list, Denver was actually 5th at 72% aggregate income growth. So if Austin and Denver are having similar growth in population and income, but Austin is permitting more than 2 times as many new housing units, that's going to cause a slowdown in value appreciation in Austin. Now, I don't want anyone to think that this reflects negatively on Austin. In fact, I think it's a great thing that Austin is permitting so many new housing units. It's not good for a city to have runaway value growth, runaway rent growth. One of the attractive things about Austin is that it's still a relatively affordable city for all the great things it offers. However, I do think that real estate investors and owners and anyone buying a home should understand this data and, probably not expect the same level of value appreciation that occurred over the last 10 years to occur over the next 10 years. Because with all the supply that Austin is permitting, it's just going to be really hard for values to keep growing at really fast rates. With that said, I think Austin is one of the safest markets to invest in terms of downside, given how many people are moving here, given how much incomes are growing up. Nothing that bad could really happen to the real estate market. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Austin is definitely one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing city in the country. Lots of great things are going on in the city, and they're building the housing to support that, which is a good thing. It's just that maybe values aren't going to go up quite as much as people expect because of that. Please leave a like and a comment, and definitely let me know if you want me to do a similar video for another city or market around the country. Until then, this is Nick from Reventure Consulting signing off.